Senate today has passed the bill seeking to establish state police in Nigeria. And the High Court sitting in Sokoto State has sentenced 3 men, including a foreign national, to death by hanging, following their conviction on charges bordering on terrorism and arms proliferation. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for joining in. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Okimale right here for you in our Abuja studio. Our major conversation tonight about state police, and we saw how swiftly the National Assembly moved in passing that bill. But what are the significance? The major fear that most critics of state policing concept have is a misuse by governors. But when you have a situation where governors are backing it and they say they want it, and there is a national emergency in need for states and the local governments to take charge of their security apparatus and structure, is it the right time to have it? If it's not, when would be the right time? Tonight, we're speaking with one of those governors right in the forefront of pushing for state policing. But before we get into that, let me tell you that a High Court sitting in Sokoto State today sentenced 3 men, including a foreign national, to death by hanging, following their conviction on charges bordering on terrorism and arms proliferation. The convicts, Yusuf Muhammad Elias Salau, a Nigerian, Jabi Alhaji Yale, and Kabiru Mohammed, they were apprehended on the 13th June 2025 by the Department of State Services, the DSS, and counter-terrorism units in connection with cross-border criminal activities bordering on arms trafficking and terrorism. The case was presided today over by Justice Mohammed Nuruddin Bello of the High Court 23 Court Sokoto. Delivering judgment, Justice Bello found all 3 defendants guilty as charged and sentenced them to death by hanging. The court also ordered the forfeiture of all monetary exhibits recovered from the convicts to the federal government. We'll take frontally on the matter of state police tonight on the program. But before we get started with my guest tonight, let's serve you with some of your political roundup stories.
The President of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, has sworn in 4 newly elected senators who emerged victorious in the recent by-elections conducted by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. The new lawmakers are Senator Olaka Nwogu, PDP Rivers Southeast, Senator Mvulu Anza, APC Nasarawa North, Senator Ikeje Asobu, APC Enugu North, and Senator Dayo Faduile, APC Ondo North. Their inauguration followed the by-elections held last Saturday to fill vacant seats in 4 senatorial districts. The National Assembly is considering constitutional alteration bills to introduce formal key performance appraisals for Nigeria's security leadership. This was part of the presentation by the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Benjamin Lukezekalo, at the Chatham House Africa Program Roundtable in London, United Kingdom, where he highlighted that Nigeria's challenges are real and that Nigeria's response to them is equally real. He was speaking on Nigeria's 2027 elections, how to ensure electoral integrity amid a deepening security crisis. Justice Mohammed Umar of the Federal High Court in Abuja has fixed June the 30th for the ruling on a motion filed by the presidential candidate of the African Action Congress, Mr. Omoyele Sowore, seeking to vacate an order for his bail revocation. At the resumed hearing, counsel to Sowore, Mr. Raphael Adakole, informed the court that the matter was adjourned for hearing of their application to set aside the order of bench warrant and revocation of bail of the defendant on account of his absence in court on June June the 16th, which was challenged by counsel to the Department of State Services, Mr. Akinkolu Kehinde. Former Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai has appeared before two separate courts in Kaduna over allegations of corruption and abuse of office. At the Federal High Court, presided over by Justice Hawa'u Buhari, proceedings in a case filed by the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, were adjourned until July the 1st, 2026. The adjournment came after both the prosecution and defense presented arguments on the bail application filed by El-Rufai's legal team. At today's proceedings, counsel for both parties made submissions, focusing largely on the defendant's request for bail. After hearing the arguments, Justice Buhari fixed July the 1st, 2026, for ruling on the application. The Kabiru Turaki-led People's Democratic Party has presented certificates of return to governorship candidates of the party. The chairman of the group, Mr. Kabiru Turaki, says the party will contest elections in every constituency where elections will be held in 2027. He stated this in Abuja at a ceremony to hand over certificates of return to the party's candidates ahead of the 2027 elections. Mr. Turaki warns the candidates against playing anti-party games, noting that all candidates will now be mandated to sign an undertaking with the party before their credentials are forwarded to INEC. Governor Umar Fintiri of Adamawa State has embarked on a consultative and advocacy visit to various communities across the Northern Senatorial District to garner support for the renewed hope reform agenda of President Bola Tinubu and to sensitize them on security issues. The governor, who during the visit commissioned some road projects executed by his administration in the area, urged the people to be vigilant over security matters, considering developments in some parts of the country.
There you have it. You've been served with your political roundup story. So let's get to it. It's probably one of the major concerns in Nigeria today. The killings, kidnappings, the abductions, the incessant, the insecurity situation we're seeing in the country today. A lot is happening, and it does look like we needed help. But where will the help come from? There are those who think that we need to fix a portion of our constitution to be able to fix what has become a gap in our federal state structure. So today, we saw the Senate passing a bill seeking to amend the 1999 Constitution to provide for the establishment of state police services across the Federation. Nigeria's long-running debate over state policing has entered this decisive new phase, with the Senate approving the constitutional amendment bill to establish state police services alongside the existing federal police structure. The legislation, which secured the support of more than two-thirds of senators, empowers governors to appoint state police commissioners subject to confirmation by their respective state houses of assembly, and grants them authority to issue lawful directives on matters of public safety and order, while proponents argue that decentralized policing will improve intelligence gathering and strengthen responses to local security threats. The bill also contains safeguards aimed at preventing political abuse, including provisions that prohibit state police from targeting individuals, groups, or political parties for criticizing government, except in accordance with the law. Well, the nation is weighing the promise and potential risk of a dual policing system. What does this mean? Earlier today, we saw that the Senate admitted some governors, very strangely, those who are not the usual members at plenary. We saw governors of Kaduna, governors of Ogun State, Dapo Abiodun, and the chief of staff to President Bola Tinubu, Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, who was a former speaker of the House of Representatives. They arrived and they joined the plenary, but the Senate leadership requested for them to be allowed into plenary. Also, the governor of Ondo State was present there, and as soon as that happened, the senators moved into the adoption of the bill to pass a second reading. All right. So this is not the first time we are hearing about Senate deliberating on state police. In fact, there was a time, and I guess this was a time when the class of Rajiv Babatunde Fashola, the class of Babangida Aliyu in Niger State and the rest were governors. It was almost passed, but something happened. There was a time also in, I think, the 9th Assembly where my guests on the program tonight proposed a bill in this direction, but also never saw the light of day. So tonight, it's a governor and a former senator, governor of Kaduna State, Senator Sani, is live for us on this program on this particular matter. Your Excellency, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
How does it look like today? Significantly, you and your colleagues attended plenary today. What was the essence of your presence at plenary?
Thank you very much, Sheun. Number one is simply because recall that whatever is happening on the issue of state police, we have discussed the issue exhaustively at the level of NEC, National Economic Council. And of course, some time ago, I even granted interviews and I made it clear to the media that virtually all the 36 governors have agreed on the establishment of state police. But of course, if we as governors agree on the state police, certainly the bill must either come from the executive or from the National Assembly themselves. I'm happy today President Bola Ahmed Tinubu have taken the challenge, and as someone who believes in true federalism, have decided to now send a bill to the National Assembly for the establishment of state police in Nigeria. So also you have to understand that whatever is passed at the level of National Assembly, certainly 2/3 of the state assemblies have to also approve for any part of the constitution to be amended, also have state police in Nigeria. So, and not only that, some of us have been advocating for this state police. Recall, in 2020, when I was in the Senate, I sponsored the creation of state police. And I can also say here that in 2022, the Senate, then, that is the 9th Senate, also approved for the establishment of state police. Unfortunately, we lost it at the level of conference committee because whatever happened at the Senate, the House of Reps must also come with their own version, and there'll be conference committee that will discuss clause by clause and also agree on the final position on the creation of state police, which also after that, at the State Assembly, we also have to approve. There's a 2/3 majority. So that is the reason why some of us decided to go to the National Assembly today to also encourage some of our members of the National Assembly to fast-track the passage of this very important bill. So today, I'm happy to say that the bill for the alteration of the Constitution for the establishment of state police in Nigeria was passed today. That is alteration number 6. And of course, I have no doubt in my mind, this is something that will be welcomed by every Nigerian. I kept saying that a lot of people misunderstood the call for the creation of state police. There are many reasons. And of course, all I can say here is that even when we lost it in 2020, at that time, myself and some of my colleagues who believe in the creation of state police agree on one fact, that it's just a matter of time before state police is established in Nigeria. So we have to give a lot of credit to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who submitted the bill. It's an executive bill.
Yeah. Procedurally, this bill was laid before the National Assembly yesterday. Today it passed second reading. Do you see anything that is rather unusual in that?
There is nothing. You see, a lot of people always raise issues out of nothing. When I was in the National Assembly, many times we have bills that are very critical, that are very important, particularly bills that have to do with the national security, because we are talking about lives and properties of our citizens, of our country. So the state police is very critical, it's very important. That's the reason why the Senate even have to now resume immediately from their own recess. You know their own recess. They have not even supposed to come back today, but they've decided to cut short their own recess and resume today just because of the importance of this very important bill.
So because the fear of some of the lawmakers is that there hasn't been any good time to be able to look into the errors, the advantages, the plus, and the minuses in that bill. The document is about 140 pages, but none of them were able to really study it. It's less than 24 hours, and it's past second reading.
Shehu, let me be very frank with you. It depends on which of the bill you're talking about. The one that was passed by the House of Representatives was a bit different from the one that was passed today
by the Senate.
So sometimes people misunderstood issues that have to do with lawmaking. The one that was submitted today was the one that is an executive bill. And I can tell you, it's only 26 clauses. 26. I remember, when I was in the Senate, I sponsored a bill, the Warfare Act. It's over 113 clauses. We passed it within a few days. And that is because of the importance of Banking and Other Financial Institution Act. Today we're talking about state police. It's only 26 clauses in that bill.
So there's
and I can agree with
unusual in
For
the
me,
manner, in the pace and the speed.
There is nothing unusual. Not only that, when you look at the major section that were amended, section 214, going down to 215, 216, when you see it, it's something that is very, very easy. Every lawmaker will tell you he needs very few hours to study it and come up with a position. Many part of that amendment, if you look at it, were retained, the section 214 of the Constitution. Most of those part of it were retained. Only alteration in some areas that is necessary for the creation of the State Police Service Commission and other areas that must be established for the state police to be created. That's the most important.
So why the speed? Why the pace? Why the hurry?
Let me tell you the hurry. If you ask me, any day we delay, we're going to continue to lose lives. When I was sponsoring the state police, I wasn't a governor. I was a senator. I didn't even know I would be a governor. That was 2020. It took me 3 years before I even contested for governorship. So I was doing that not because I was trying to give advantage to any governor, but because of the national security of our own country. And Shehu, let me be very frank with you. Many people talking about the establishment of state police. I cannot remember any country around the world that is practicing true federalism that do not have state and federal police force. So it exists in many countries around the world. So when people are afraid about the abuse, it's simply because some of the people have no knowledge about the act of lawmaking. Today we're talking about this alteration bill. Everybody went through it, close by close. I was happy, even when some of the leading members of the opposition, like distinguished Senator Tambuwal, who is a lawyer, who was also there, Senator Abaribe, they are all within the opposition. They supported many things about this bill. It's simply because there's nothing political. It's about saving the lives and properties of our own citizens. That is the most important thing. And let me tell you, when people are talking about some areas of concern, abuse, there are a lot of safeguards in this bill that prohibits governors from using state police against political opponents. That is the most important thing. Number two, we will talk about funding. We are funding many things in this country. So we cannot fund security, protection of lives and properties of our citizens. Then there's a problem. It's more important than building bridge, building road.
Yeah, I will come to we will take each step by steps. All of the 26 clauses that are going to be altered. I'd like to let our viewers know that some of the areas that which we're going to be touching on, which the bill generally touches on to and seeking to alter and amend and review, is the appointment of state commissioners in terms of control of the structure of the state. And I will be engaging the governor of Kaduna on this one. Governors will now give policy directives on the manner in which the security architecture of their state will run, the protection against political abuse. That clause is also there, because that's one of the biggest fear, that governors and some leaders, for political reasons, some people will use the state police structure against political opponents. The other thing is federal police being able to come in when needed. The other issue, which is about the fifth one, is the presidential approval when it is required for takeover or intervention. They also said, where will the National Assembly, the Senate, come in approving long interventions when necessary? This is overlapping of the powers between the state and the federal government. That needs to be clearly stated. Nigeria will now have two police systems. How will this run? Does the state government have the capacity to be able to run it? And these are the areas in which we will get into it. Governor Sani, are you surprised that President Bola Tinubu's government, that's the executive, this is an executive bill that's going to, for the alteration of the Constitution? A lot of the times when you see this happening, it shows that executive, when they are pressed on a particular matter, they sit down and they come up with an executive bill. Did you see the president doing this in the first place? He said he wanted it. When the IGP came, he set up a committee on state police, and we'll imagine that it was National Assembly that was going to spearhead it, but they've started it. But the executive have come up with their own version of the bill to say, this is how we think this should go. Did you see that coming, though?
Of course, I've seen that coming. I was one of the few governors that approached Mr. President. I recall, in fact, just about last year, I went to Mr. President, I sat with him, because as someone who believed in true federalism, I met him, we sat down together, and I also drew his attention to the fact that in Nigeria today, we have only about less than 250,000 military personnel. We have less than 400,000 police personnel in the whole of Nigeria. And I also draw his attention to the fact that when you go to some part of Nigeria, a lot of spaces are ungoverned. It's simply because we are lacking boots on ground. You have to agree with me. That is established. Anybody in Nigeria that tells you the number of police and the military up in Nigeria are enough to govern this country is somebody who is being mischievous or not being sincere. That has been established, and I told Mr. President. Number two, in 70s, let me draw attention, if you ask any military general in Nigeria, we had almost 300,000 military personnel. Today, in Nigeria, we still have less than that number. You know why? Because there are a lot of rigorous process to join military, particularly under this current security problems we're facing. We need to be careful, we need to be thorough, and we need to follow the process. That's number one. But the police force, we are looking at the federal police, we have less than 400,000. There are some part of Nigeria you'll go, you move about 100 kilometers or 200 kilometers without seeing any security personnel. Yet, people are living around those areas and those localities and villages. Who is protecting those people? That's number three. Number four, I've made Mr. President to understand, because I talked to him freely and recall, both myself and Mr. President were in the struggle for the enthronement of democracy and true federalism in Nigeria. When you're talking about devolution of power, you have to also look at the issue of security architecture of Nigeria. And to do that, most of the federal police force you're seeing here, you can take someone from Akwa Ibom today and send him to Benengwari in Kaduna as a police officer. It will take him a lot of time to understand the terrain. But that is number one. Number two, as we are speaking, many states in Nigeria have established vigilance services. But do you know why they are not effective? It's simply because the Constitution prohibits them from holding light arms. They can only use firm action, meaning when you send them to go and protect the lives and properties of the people, you are sending them to death sentence. Because those bandits, insurgents they're talking about, most of them operate with AK-49, AK-47, I mean more advanced weapons. Certainly, something has to be done. And every day we are losing lives, people are being kidnapped, and you are blaming the government. Something has to be done. And that was the reason I went to Mr. President and say, it is time to establish support. I'm happy President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a listening president, and he's someone who believes in this country. What I'm trying to tell most of the people that are worried about the abuse, let's try it. There's room for amendments. You know, law is not something that's sacrosanct. When you now establish a law, you can always amend it when you realize it's not working. Nothing there. The sacrosanct. When we were in the National Assembly, we amended a lot of bills. A lot of alterations, because we realized some of them were either obsolete, or they are not working, or they are not in line with the global best practice. So there's room for amendment, but we must practice it.
Senator, I like you to, and because particularly when I reached out to you, there are a lot of indices around your personality, your role, your office. Your state, Kaduna, is a typical example of a state that needs a special attention when it comes to how we can solve insecurity in Nigeria. You are a former lawmaker and you are a sitting governor, so you have, and you've proposed this bill before, so you are almost a perfect fit for this conversation. But Governor Sani, it looks like those who are proponents of this bill think it is a silver bullet, that once we have state policing, all our security problems will end. Governor Sani, if insecurity continues after state police becomes operational, who do you think we should blame? Who do you think Nigerians should hold accountable? The governor, the commissioner, or the federal government?
Let me tell you, honestly speaking, I'm very optimistic about this. I will tell you when.
You think it's a silver bullet?
It's going to be successful. That was my thinking in 2020.
Will it fix insecurity?
And I still believe right now. It been many people that are opposed to it at the beginning. They are not supporting it. Even many members of the National Assembly, for instance, when we raised the issue in 2020, the Sungu Senator Abaribe was among the senators opposing it. But today, I was happy when I was in the Senate floor. He stood up. I was in the chamber. He now happens to be one of the senators that believe in the state police, because they've sat down, they've seen things are changing. We have to understand the situation. Let's not be so skeptical about something that we have not even tested. That is a problem with this.
So let's look at what. So I'm asking, you think it's going to be a silver bullet? That definitely. Once we have it, our problems are on the right path to solving it. Right? That's what you think.
I have no doubt in my mind.
There are those 100%. Who say being an executive bill helps it to move faster when they know that President Bola Tinubu is the one who presented this bill. Because a lot of the times, and I'll give several examples, at some point at the conference committee in the 9th Assembly, it failed. At some point, I think in the 7th or the 8th Assembly, some of the northern governors say, look, we cannot simply fund it. The state can't fund it. They can't fund. At some point, it didn't come through at the state assembly level. There was no concurrence. So different times, it has had different problems. But you think, politically speaking, this is going to be a walk, it's going to be easier, right? Very easy. Okay. Very. Let me ask you, Governor, one of the biggest fears surrounding state police is political abuse by, and the accusation is on the table of against you and your colleagues that Nigerian governors will misuse it. And the history of the country includes allegations of governors influencing local institutions, electoral processes, and security agencies. See what happened in local government elections. Every state you conduct local government elections, one party, the ruling party, wins all. Takes all. What assurances can you give, Governor, that state police commissioners appointed by the governors will not become instruments for harassing political opponents, activists, or journalists? Because a lot of people are talking about they did not probably read the clause that gave governors powers to appoint state police. But the same clause have also prohibited governors from sacking the state police commissioners. That can only be done through the police council, which will be headed by who? By Mr. President. Is a council. So the state governor, just like you appointing the chief judge of your own state. But you cannot sack the chief judge, but you can appoint him. It has to come through the NGC before that can happen. So the same process is what is there in the clause. So a lot of people only read this bill, not necessarily looking at the safeguards. Every step of this bill, there's always a safeguard. Because there are those who will say, yes, you're talking about the leadership in terms of appointment. What about the rank and file? For example, they say he who pays the piper dictates the tune. If the state is funded and the governor is the head of the state, you don't think that the body language of the governor... Already, I can tell you
today that you can appoint the commissioner of police, but you cannot sack him. That is the issue. It's not, you can't even sack him by the act of by the state assembly. No. So that's safeguard. It must be with the approval of Police Service Commission or Police Council, as well as National Assembly, together with the State Assembly. So there's a lot of safeguard to abuse, to control the abuse, to stop the abuse. So it's there in that act.
There are those who say we have replica of state police in Nigeria presently, and there are different states in the country now.
Which one?
Who are the Amotekun, for example, in the southwest.
Let me tell you, let me educate, don't go far.
Yeah.
Sure, because there's a lot of confusion happening. You see, a lot of people looking at that, they have no knowledge about Firearms Act in Nigeria. You see, that's the reason why, simply because Firearms Act was amended. I remember when I was in the 9th Senate, when the bill was also submitted by the National Security Advisor's Office, that is Monguno. But now, with this current State Police Alteration Bill that was passed today, it supersedes that very firearms provision. Now, Amotekun and all the vigilance services groups created by state governors cannot hold light arms. You know what the meaning of light arms? We are talking about AK-47, AK-49 and things within that region. Amotekun cannot do anything. Vigilance service cannot do anything. Because, like I said, you are sending them to death sentence because you are telling them to confront the insurgents, the bandits. These guys are holding pure arms. They cannot do anything. That is the reason why it is important to have state police, because the current constitutional amendment will allow the state police to hold light arms. What does that mean? They will now also be armed with those light arms, AK-47, AK-49, and other arms that could be defined by the relevant authorities.
So, Governor, it means that because I give an example of the United States. So you go to Los Angeles, so you have the LA police force. You go to New York, you have the NYPD, but you still have the federal police in the United States. So that's what will happen. So we have Kaduna State Police, Lagos State Police, Kwara State Police. In that sense, we can then now hold you and your colleagues accountable. Then you can now be the chief security officer in practice, in action, in deed, and in truth. Is that right?
That's right.
So we can now say, Governor Sani, you have sworn to protect the people of Kaduna State. If anything happens, we can hold you accountable. This is the interpretation and implication, isn't it?
That is it. That was the reason why I was always calling for, so the governors can be held accountable for whatever happened in their state. But you need to also empower them constitutionally to be able to do that. And that is the reason why I want to assure Nigerians again, we shouldn't have anything to worry about. Everybody can pushing for the creation of state police is simply because we've seen what is happening. All the people that have come to you, let me say this into issue today, I've had you grant an interview with many so-called security experts. And even some politicians who says, oh, I'm the presidential candidate, a gubernatorial candidate of opposition parties. Or you ask them, do you have any program, agenda on how you can address the issue of security in Nigeria? Most of them said, I have it, but I will not reveal to you, because they don't have anything. The only way to address it is to create state police, because we are lacking boots on ground. No president in this country can address that. We have only 400,000 police in a country of over 230 million people. Go to our neighboring countries that are less in terms of population compared to Nigeria. Some of them have over 1.5 million police force. Go to Egypt, for instance. What are we talking about?
All right, give me a moment, Governor Sani. We'll take a break. But when we come back, I would like to know, in the past, governor said we couldn't fund. Can the governors now fund? This time around, we've seen a lot of, Sunday Igboho, we've seen all of these different groups, interest groups, wanting to provide some local protection to their people. What are the implications of this, and how can we stem the tide of insecurity in our nations? Governor Sani will be speaking to me again when we come back from the break. Stay with us. Thanks so much, everyone. Welcome back to the program. The question on your mind as an average citizen of this country, wherever you may be watching, is whether or not you are safe. Safe to move around, safe to sleep and wake up, safe to do your job, safe to travel wherever you want to in every inch of this country. There are those who say those particular opportunities are now challenged because of insecurity in the country. And so the reason for state police, and for those who are advocating for it, is not a new thing, but yet they say it is necessary. Senator Sani, a governor of Kaduna State, a former lawmaker, today was present in the National Assembly at the Senate plenary when the lawmakers passed to second reading the state police and be as forwarded or proposed by the executive through the office of the president, Bola Tinubu. Thanks so much, Governor, for your time. I think it's important because there's those who say we will now have 36 plus 1 military arms in Nigeria, meaning that Kaduna State militia, Kogi State, Ogun State, and we have different. But have we been able to dissect what the problem of the Nigerian police force? And I've read a lot of literature on some of the problems of policing in Nigeria. Number is a major problem. The United Nations will say 1 to about 450 or thereabout. That we fall below that number. 2, there are those who will say funding. The police force has been badly funded. Look at their barracks. Look at their ammunitions. They are very poorly funded. No communication gadgets and all of that. There are those who say they are not well equipped in terms of training, equipped in terms of support, equipped in terms of even morale. And you see a lot of things that happen when you are driving on the street and you see police officers stop you and beg for money. It breaks your heart. And it's about the welfare of some of these officers who are sometimes well trained, probably better trained than some other countries, but because of the welfare system in this country, things have collapsed. And there are those who say, look, create as many layers of policing. If you don't fix this problem, you still go back to the same thing. Does this bill, as proposed by the president, cater for that?
Thank you very much. Of course, first let me talk about the federal police force, because you talk about their condition, but I will tell you here that President Bola Tinubu has done extremely well in addressing most of these issues. If you look at the level of intervention he has made in the last 3.5 years toward addressing the issue of police in Nigeria, I think from some of the things that we've seen, and that was even approved at a level of National Economic Council, President Bola Tinubu have done more than any president in the area of supporting the police in this country. And that is the reason why he believes state governors have to also come in. And he also believes that the numbers are really very small, and we are lacking boots on ground when it comes to the number of police, comparing it with the number of the population we have in this country today. And I agree with you that when you look at the ratio of 1 to 400, in Nigeria, I can tell you we are among the least country in the whole world that have the least number when it comes to the number of police in our own country.
The ratio
to the citizen is the least in the whole world, as we're speaking. I can tell you today, and you can go and fact check. Now, we find ourselves in this very critical situation of insecurity in Nigeria, and the president will not fold his arm and allow the things to deteriorate. And I kept telling people, if this issue was addressed many years ago, we wouldn't have been where we are today. All this issue of banditry, insurgency, I can tell you here, if state police was approved by both House and the president at that time, 6 years ago, we wouldn't have been where we are today. This issue of banditry, insurgency in many parts of the northwestern part of Nigeria just started not long. I can tell you, it became
Governor Sani, for example, let's take Kaduna, for example.
Yeah.
And only recently we saw Kaduna embattled by banditry, abductions in schools. If you had the opportunity of having your own police, what would you do? How would you tackle?
Let me give you. I'm happy that you gave me one example. Of course, before I answer your question, Kaduna, I think it's one of the states in Nigeria that have reduced the level of insecurity. We have really addressed most of the problems. So, but still, we need the state police to eradicate the issue of insecurity in Kaduna State. But we've reduced it tremendously. That was the reason why last time I met you, I was telling you, even the Minister of Development and Africa from UK came to Abuja last 2 weeks, and she dropped from Abuja to Kaduna by road. That is Baroness Jennifer. She is the Minister of State of Development and Africa from UK. She came to Kaduna on an assignment. She slept in Kaduna. She came by road, and the next day she left by road with her entourage of about 13 of them from UK. So that is a sign of improvement. Many years ago, there is no way the UK government will allow the whole minister to travel by road. That could have been something that's impossible. Progress, that is progress. So we're making a lot of progress in Kaduna. And credit must go to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We don't have to like him, but that is a fact. Going to Benangwari today, you don't need a police escort. You go to Benangwari. Before, you cannot dare travel to Benangwari by road. So this is improvement, but I can tell you, let me give you one example. Yes, in Kaduna, when we came in newly, there was a time, even, about 87 school children were kidnapped at Kuriga school, you remember. Mm-hmm. And even in Kuriga, we have more than 100 to 200 vigilant services, which were armed with form action. They saw the bandits coming because they were alert. They were guarding the school premises and the town. Unfortunately, only from the report we had from the SSS and the police, eventually, the number of bandits that came to kidnap almost 100 of our children were not even up to 50. You know why? Because they came with AK-47. So the vigilance services, there were over 200, completely, have to completely vanish. You know, because the reason is that when you are holding farm action, you cannot be able to shoot someone within a certain range. But someone with AK-47 can even take you.
And even the speed of the discharge of the bullet.
And the distance.
Once you pump, you have to...
So it's not the same. It can go beyond 200 meters. But that one can go even almost 500 meters or more than that. That's AK-47, AK-49. When you ask the expert, they will tell you. So our people were empowered, were completely disarmed. They could not do anything. The children were kidnapped in their own village, in their community. So this is one example. If we had state police at that time, these are vigilance services armed with AK-47 and AK-49. No bandits will dare come there because they will not live there alive. So, but we have to stop sending our people on death sentence, because when the vigilance services disappear, it's simply because they don't have the arm to confront the bandits. So that's one example. So for me, state police an idea that the time has come. Mm-hmm. I want to call on all the people that I kept saying this, even those that are skeptical. They should allow this thing to be practiced. Yeah. Then we'll see if there's any amendment.
If you have your way and you have the police with the necessary firepower, would you go into the bush, in the forest where they are, and bomb them all?
If we have come again?
If you have the kind of police and the firepower in Kaduna State, let's assume you have Kaduna State Police, and I'm giving this example because your predecessor said he was going to bomb them all. Do you have that same ideology about killing or attacking the bandits? Would you go to their forest and bomb them, or what exactly would be your own strategy?
Whatever I do, I'm a governor, but I'm not a security expert. So that is the reason why even when we have the state police, if you look at this law critically, you will agree with me. Many clauses here may declare that a lot of certification and approval has to be made. You don't just go because you're a governor and just take a decision or take an action. It must come from a thorough security intelligence. There must be intelligence, which will be provided by superior security.
So the question
agencies.
I'm asking, do you think that these bandits or terrorists deserve a second chance to life?
I don't believe they deserve the conscience because, in my own opinion, they are terrorists. When you call them terrorists, meaning they are people that kill innocent citizens. Certainly, they have no right to live. They must be eliminated. That is a fact.
So there is nothing like repentant terrorists?
No, for me, I don't believe when someone kills someone, you should just allow him again. When he's a terrorist, he's a terrorist. When we are trying to forgive people, oh, this thing is not terrorist. Terrorist is a terrorist, meaning it's someone that can kill, he can destroy.
And as such, and you are killing, you deserve to be killed.
In my own opinion, they should be killed, definitely, because they're terrorists.
Give me another moment. But the question again that I'd like to ask when we return. Governors at the time said they cannot fund state police. But the question here now, and this time, and this age, and this moment, can the governors now fund state police? We'll be asking Governor Sani after this break. Thanks so much, everyone. Our closing moment now with Governor Sani of Kaduna State. Governor Sani, the governors had complained in the past that the reason why state police cannot work is because they don't have what it takes to be able to fund it. Does it now mean that all the 36 states of the Federation can now afford to fund state police?
Thank you very much. Of course, in my own opinion, because a lot of people do not understand what transpired between subnationals and the federal government. Let me give you an example. Since we came in, on many occasions, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu have supported consistently state governors on infrastructure funding. So if President can support state to fund infrastructure, I have no doubt in my mind. What is more important? Is it building infrastructure or addressing the issue of insecurity? They have to do with the lives and properties of our citizens. Without security, you can't even build the infrastructure. So in my own opinion, of course, the priority for every state governor should be addressing the issue of insecurity, why it is necessary. So for me, funding should never be a problem. And again, some people are talking about the number of police that could be recruited by a state. If you look at the act today, the bill that was passed for the alteration of the Constitution to create state police, there was no any number. As a state governor of Kaduna, I can decide to have 1,000 state police personnel. If another governor decides to have 3,000, it's fine. Nobody says this is a number you must have. You have to look according to the needs. Even when you look at the federal police force, the number of the police officers probably in Kaduna might be more than the numbers in many states in Nigeria. So are we saying that the number of federal police in Kaduna are the same thing with the one in Ibadan, the one in Jigawa? No. So every state governor can decide on the number based on the funding and based on the necessity, because there are some states that have bigger challenges. Even today, like
Kano
you're saying,
has 44 local government areas, Kekiti has 16 local government areas, Kwara has about 16 local government areas, and the size and the number, the size of Niger State is more than the entire 5 states of the Southeast.
Fantastic.
So in terms of dynamics of size of the state, the number of the people and the population, because the UN ratio of the persons, the citizen to policing is also there. So the law did not specify how many
number
per state.
Is that discretion of a state governor?
Based on the technicalities
on the needs, on how you could
Governor, my worry here, and perhaps what I think should worry your political party, is that security is a major issue in the governance delivery promises of President Bola Tinubu and your party. Are you worried that the opposition, the Nigerian people and voters will punish your party?
No. I can tell you.
Because of the insecurity.
I can tell you the voters are very clever. What you see usually on the social media is different from what the people on the ground. I kept telling you. You see, there was election just recently. APC won virtually everything. If the major opposition are talking like ADC, didn't mean anything. Let me tell you the truth. What you see on the social media have nothing to do with what happens on the ground.
So social media world
are for the elites. Are for the elites who sit down in their bedroom, write whatever they want to write. But the fact of the matter is, those people, it's just like you going to Benangwari today and tell them, don't vote for Aswaju. They would think you are mad because they know when Aswaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu himself came to Kaduna in 2022, he couldn't reach Benangwari without 21 armored vehicles escorting him. Today, you get to Benangwari without a police escort. So that is progress. So for me, those in the localities, those in those areas, they are aware that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was not the person that brought about insecurity in Nigeria or in northern Nigeria. There was a lot of problems in the past, and he's fixing it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We must leave it at that. Senator Sani, Governor of Kaduna, said, many thanks for your time tonight on the program. That's our show for today, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Wakimale. God bless Nigeria.